Every family has a beginning, and ours began with Grandma Tony. With love in her heart, faith in God, and traditions that brought everyone together, she raised her children to care for one another, work hard, laugh often, and always remember where they came from. Those same values didn't end with her children. They were passed on to her grandchildren through the love of Grandma, the guidance of our aunts and uncles, and the example of a family that stayed connected through every season of life.
3.
I'm Terry Rocco, Miguel and Socorro Duarte's oldest daughter, and I have 2 kids of my own and 2 grandkids. And I'm also the first grandchild in the Duarte family. Grandma's first, I'm the oldest, but I was also the first, which makes my experience probably a little different from people because I spent a lot of time with Grandma when they lived in the Colonia. I remember I used to spend the night. I remember the house. There was something magical about it. And something that I really remember was when I spent the night on the weekend, Saturdays we'd go grocery shopping and she would throw things in the cart that I liked. And after we went shopping, we'd go get Chinese food. And that's the first time I ever got to taste Chinese food was with Grandma. Because remember back at that time, she was working and so was our grandpa, as we know him, Abel. So we were able to go out and eat, which was very special back then. And I always looked forward to going to the Chinese restaurant. It was on Chapman and Brookhurst because I was older. But Grandma's had a nacimiento. I believe when they lived in Anaheim in the Colonia, they did a more traditional posada where they went from house to house. It was when they moved to Garden Grove that Grandma only did in the house. Because Garden Grove at the time, there weren't very Mexican families there, and she didn't want to rile the neighbors. My vivid memories of Christmas was her nacimiento being from the whole wall, from one end to the other, with so many figurines and different places and several sets of kings and all the babies, that everyone had their own little baby Jesus that they would put there on Christmas Eve and all dressed up in special outfits. But we'd all go to Grandma's that day, make tamales. That was a tradition. As a child growing up, I just remember all the kids were together and we just put the masa on the hojas. We never got to do any of the other steps. So I really didn't know how to make tamales other than that. But that was fun because everybody had their job to do. But we couldn't eat the tamales until after midnight. That was the tradition. But Grandma would make champurrado. It's like hot chocolate and buñuelos. And that's what we would have to hold us over until Tia Maria got there. And when Tia Maria got there, everybody stopped and she'd come in and, it would be like, okay, now we can start the ceremonies and the traditions, the singing, the prayers. And there would be I remember she would hold a tray with her baby on it, right? And there'd be special candy in there. They were all bumpy and bright colors. They were called colaciones. And the only time we ever ate them was Christmas. Focus. But growing up, I remember she had Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. As we got older, she put the Beatles out there. She had Elvis. And as I got older, I asked her, Grandma, how come you had the Beatles there? And she goes, because you guys were teenagers. And I wanted you to keep looking at when you're kids, you obviously, everything intrigues you. But as you get older, you think, But she said, but it made you look at the nacimiento, didn't it? And I said, well, yeah, And I just thought, wow. I had no idea that she had a rhyme or reason to what she was doing, but there was. And even to tell me that when we set up the one at the school, she went over and she moved the cow closer to the baby Jesus, because you have it too far away, because it was the cow and the donkey's breath that kept the baby warm. So every piece was there for a reason, and I would not have known that if I didn't have that experience with her and just keep asking her questions. Why do you have this? Why that? She even had a devil in a cantina. And I said, why do you have a devil in a cantina? It's baby Jesus. It's supposed to be like religious, was my thinking. And she said, well, because, everyone was invited to his birth, good or bad, and he welcomed everyone. God welcomes everyone to his table. So,
hi, my name is Marco Duarte, and I am one of 6 children of Felix Duarte. My brother Danny, who passed away, my brother Ricky, my brother Ronnie, Edgar, and Bettina. And we have a lot of really great chefs within the Duarte family. We talked about Uncle Willie making the food in which he had to bury a hole in the backyard to cook a pig in the back, and I mean, I'll never forget that. Grandma and all of the different tamales and rice and beans and quesadillas and menudo, as well as at Grandma's Park that we used to call Grandma's Park. We used to go there annually, sometimes a few times a year, and celebrate various events and remembering the food. So these things, again, as I'm older now and I have my own children, these are memories that are coming back to me that I remember a lot. And what I've recently learned is these times when we all gathered and had food together is something that is now, I know now, is a special moment and was in fact cherished and is cherished. And I cherish those times now when we're able to gather with family and share in a meal. And I also, I think, take back a lot of the decorations as I have continued my faith journey. I remember as a young person seeing all these statues at Cello and Chetty's house and Grandma's house. I used to see statues of Mother Mary, statues of Jesus, statues of angels, statues of all kinds of things. And I knew what they were when I was little, but I don't think they had as much significance as they do now. I have my own statues now at my home, and those statues remind me of my family, of celebrating those gatherings at our family's events, gathering to have food, and just sharing in those moments with all of my aunts, uncles, family, and friends. So I think that's what I could take back from my memory of Duarte.
It was a tradition, I guess, it came from her family, from Mexico, I guess, and it was always like that, even when it was in the colonia. We'd do that in the colonia, but in the colonia, we'd go from house to house. One night we'd go from her house to another house and have chocolate, leave the baby Jesus there, and then the next night we'd go from that house to another house and have hot chocolate and pan dulce there. And then the next day, up to the day of Christmas Eve, that's when the big thing happened, and we'd go to Grandma's house. Grandma's was always the bigger house. That's where everybody would go and conjure. For Christmas, I remember we'd go over for Christmas Eve, and we'd say prayers. First, we'd sing from the door with all the aunts and uncles and cousins and everything. I can't think of it. Anyway, we'd pray the rosary, and then we do all the baby Jesus stuff that we used to do, sing to baby Jesus in Spanish, and being a good child, I always had to kneel on my knees, and we'd sit there and we'd pray the rosary, even though they were saying Spanish. I knew what it was. It would be the first person. She was one up front. She was the one that started the rosary, She's the one that prayed the rosary. She was the like the monarch, the controller of all that situation, the nativity and everything like that. And then when it was done, we'd all go and had made tamales, and I remember all the older generation would sit around the table and eat tamales and beans and drink hard liquor or whatever.
Yeah, my name is Louis Duarte. That's my born name that was given to me. I'm well known as Lou. Everybody calls me Lou, family and friends. I was just talking about the tradition of hard work and how it happened to be at the heart of, as far as I can remember, the generation before me and the generation after me and myself, just being such a hard worker. It seemed like it was more instinctive, something I was born with. But then, as I remember, with my grandma Antonia, and the story that I've been told about her early life with the family, their sons and daughters, that hard work was a part of daily living. And my dad and my Uncle Willie would go, they'd go off to the mountains and work in the logging camps in Mexico. And it was hard work. And my dad was always nose to the grindstone. This has got to be done type of thing. And my Uncle Willie was more, as described by my dad, more happy-go-lucky, always messing around or fooling around. And that's what I remember as a young child, and then growing into an old man, about my Uncle Willie. He was very much central to my having balance with such a serious nature about work and succeeding and providing for your family, and then the balance with my Uncle Willie, who would just kind of put things in perspective about not taking things too seriously. And that stuck with me. I didn't learn it, but later on in life, I did learn it. And then I learned about the people that have that particular part that wasn't obvious in my own upbringing. I'm not saying that it was a bad thing, growing up with such a stern-faced father, but I will say that he did the best he could, and I appreciate that. He was such a hard worker. And then he worked for a company for over almost 30 years, I believe, Firestone Tire and Rubber. And as the imports were coming into the United States and jobs were going overseas, his job was eliminated. And instinctively, I asked him to go to junior college with me and take machine shop courses, because I was already working and I had a really good job, and I learned a lot of things because my job was a learning ground for a lot of. All I did was show him the door. He did the rest. And he was really a good student, and he learned a trade. And he caught up with the right people who noticed, and he ended up getting another job and ending his work career and retiring from that job at Parker Hannafin. Probably one of the proudest moments of my life, interacting with my dad.
Hi, I'm Tina Duarte, and my mom and dad are Willie and Ramona.
Sisters, brothers.
My oldest brother's Jerry. The next one is my sister Mary, then Billy, and then I was the baby. We went and we did a lot of camping growing up. I remember a lot of camping going on because my dad bought that trailer. He called it the Tortuga. So we used to go camping in Lake Elsinore a lot, almost every weekend. And Grandma would go sometimes, and Micah and Josie, and we'd go to Silver Spa, and we'd put the mud on ourselves. There was like a water fountain type thing, and there was mud, and we'd put it. It's really good for your skin. So we enjoyed doing that.
What did he think about his baby girl getting a motorcycle at 18?
They were real thrilled about it, but I got the Kawasaki 90, and I wanted to learn how to ride that thing, and of course Billy was teaching me how to ride it, and I sat on it, and he told me about releasing the clutch, and then, and then holding the gas a little bit, and he says, well, what are you waiting for? So I go, okay. So I took off, and I just, I took a wheelie down the street, whoa. And then
Did you ever pull up to Grandma Tony's house?
I did actually. And I had a leather vest on. I pulled up and I was talking to her. I said, oh, come on out here, Grandma. And I put the leather vest on her, and I put her on the motorcycle, and I took her picture. So I'm with Grandma, a little biker there.
Oh, I
biker
could just
Grandma.
imagine her saying a prayer over your head and doing the sign of the cross on your forehead.
Yeah, it was quite funny. Yeah, Grandma, I always like to go visit Grandma. She always wanted to make sure that we were fed. She'd always go, come in the kitchen, I've got something here. And she had homemade tortillas and would make me a burrito of some sort. But yeah, she was really good that way. She always had a lot of plants. In fact, I got one of her plants and I still have it. So I just might have to give you a little piece of it. Yeah, and then she obviously had a green thumb because my mom and dad had a green thumb too. And so I've gotten some of their plants too. So I kind of have to take care of them and hopefully try to do as good as they do. But we did have fun growing up, and my dad was always he'd like to joke and stuff, or if he had a couple of drinks, he'd come over, oh, hi, Mija, I love you so much, and all this, and that was kind of, at first it was kind of funny because we weren't used to that, but then, it was nice that he would do that. And we'd go and visit Grandma and at the gravesite. We always put flowers over there every time we went to the cemetery. And so, yeah, and Abel was like, he was like Grandpa Cool to me and to everybody, I think, because I used to be so happy, and I would just tell all the kids, yeah, my grandpa's really cool. He works at Disneyland. And, I was really proud of that.
So yeah, we lived around the block from Grandma. It was me and my two brothers, Louie and Bobby, and I am the oldest, and we lived around the block. And so we would get dropped off in the morning and then picked up at night after my mom got home from work. Grandma would make us breakfast and then send us off to school, and then we came back home, and that's when all the kids would come back to, we call it home, Grandma's house. We came back to Grandma's house, and we'd have a snack and then play outside with the kids in the neighborhood until it got dark, and then Grandma would have dinner ready for us. And then we watch our favorite TV shows at night, and she'd watch our favorite TV shows with us. And this went on for many, many years until I was probably in 10th grade. So I was staying in the house with Grandma, helping her do stuff around the house, watching her garden. She would pick all the fruits and ask us to bring baskets to help her put the fruit in. Watching her make dinner. She didn't ask us to help her with dinner, to prepare dinner at all. but we sat there and just watched her. I say we, it was me and Karen. Sometimes Bopple, but he didn't really sit still. Yeah, she would wash the laundry by hand and put it through the, I think it was called like a wringer. It would spin, and then she put the clothes through this thing that the water would suck out of all the pieces of the clothing. And then the clothing would drop into a basket. And then part of the job was that we had to help her with hanging the clothes on the line. And she had a clothesline in the backyard, and it was long. It seemed like it was long. I don't know how long it was. There was 2 rows or 3 rows of clothesline, and it was our job to help her hang the clothes. So you would have to hand her the clothespins so she would hang the clothes. Each item had to be hung, and then when it was dried, you'd have to go back out there and help her dry it, pull it back down from the line.
Is that why you still wash your clothes by hand?
I do wash my clothes by hand. I wash like a lot of my clothes by hand. I don't know. It's just habit. I like washing my clothes by hand. I mean, not by hand, but I like hang drying them, I should say. I remembered that from my childhood. I hang dry a lot of my clothes. When there was a hardship for me or us, and we couldn't pay rent, so Grandma offered her a bedroom in her house for us to live in, and she said that she would offer the bedroom to us, but in return I was to buy a house living with her. After living with her, when I was going to move away, I needed to buy a house for my family. So we lived there. We stayed there for a year. It wasn't easy, but we did that. Part of the agreement was that I had to take her grocery shopping every week.
She opened her house to a lot.
A lot. Yes.
Why do you think that?
Because she had a big heart. She had a big heart, and she knew that we needed to have a home for our family so that my family could be a family. Not better for my girls and the raising of them. She watched them all morning and all afternoon until I got home from work. She walked them home from school. She knew how tired I was when I got home from work most of the days, and she would make an extra dinner for me and my family to go and to take home so that we just had to heat it up.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karen. I am the oldest daughter of Josephine and Daniel Correa. My mom is Josephine Correa, but she was a Duarte. She's the youngest Duarte. I am their oldest daughter. We have Daniel and Sherry. Tony is the youngest. She's 18 years younger than me. Grandma, because Grandma was very sweet and kind, and she wanted to help us out. When I got married, she wanted us to live with her so we could afford a home. We ended up buying that home because we lived with her just around the corner. And I lived right, the next street over from my Aunt Rosemary. When I lived with Grandma, I used to pick her brain, and I just really wanted to know where we came from. And she told me. She came out and she showed me these paperwork. She had a deed that she showed me from her records. And on those records it said, "Do not sell to Mexicans." Grandma lived in a barrio. When she came back from New Mexico and her sisters brought her over, she moved in a barrio in Anaheim. That barrio was right next to Disneyland. They were expanding Disneyland. And they told her that she had to sell that beautiful home that this colonial home that they had. And Grandma was a very smart lady. Back in her day, she had 6 kids. She had this beautiful home, and they were telling her she had to move. She held out. Grandma held out. She hired lawyers, and she got more money than the rest of the people. And because of that, she was able to take that money and move to these new homes in Garden Grove.
And those homes changed her life. They changed our lives. Deal with that deed that said, don't sell to Mexicans. And she made tortillas like pies. She sold to the neighbors to win them over, right? She did that for us so that we didn't have to do it with that. They had to, back in their day, they had to do back of the bus, right? Back of the bus, we didn't have to do that. They gave us white names. Karen, that's not a Mexican name. Why did they do that? They did that so we didn't have to struggle. And we don't even know Spanish. Lori and Papa and all of us, we made them. She taught us how to roll them up, but we rolled them like map, like they were not round. They were like maps. She still put them together and put them and sold to the neighbors. Leroy, who petitioned against her, put them together, baked in all our stack, and she sold them for the rest of the time. They welcomed her. We were kids. We just baked and we helped her. We didn't realize we were creating a future for our children. We didn't realize that all the struggles they had done, that was nothing for us. We didn't even know. They did all of this so we could live what we live now. Everything that I've done in life, I've thought about her and her struggles as a mom with 6 kids and her husband died. I've been able to experience anything in life because of her.
En el nombre del cielo os pido posada, pues no puede andar mi esposa amada.